now like to invite for the ANZAC address by local school students, leaders, Merimbula School, Kia Miller and Brooke Stewart.
Apologies for Brooke Stewart, he was unable to make it today. One day every year involves the whole of Australia in ceremonies of remembrance, gratitude and national pride for all our men and women who have fought and died at war. That day is ANZAC Day, celebrated on the 25th of April. When war broke out in 1914, Australia had been a federal commonwealth for only 13 years. The new national government was eager to establish its reputation among the nations of the world. In 1915, Australian and New Zealand soldiers formed part of the Allied expedition that set out to capture the Gallipoli Peninsula in order to open the Dardanelles to the Allied navies. The ultimate objective was to capture the capital of the Ottoman Empire, an ally of Germany. Instead of finding the flat beach they expected, they found they had landed at an incorrect position and faced steep cliffs and constant onslaught of enemy fire and shelling. Around 20,000 soldiers landed on the beach over 2 days, and they faced a well-organised, well-armed, large Turkish force, determined to defend their country. Many were wounded and dead after the unfriendly welcoming. The surviving diggers, as the Australians called themselves, dug in, building kilometres of trenches to survive while waiting on reinforcements. The Anzacs retreated on the 20th of December, nearly 8 months after the landing at Anzac Cove. By then, 8,141 had died and more than 18,000 had been wounded. I am sure that most of you know the story of Simpson and his donkey, but for those of you who don't, Simpson was an Australian soldier at Gallipoli who, with his donkey Murphy, unselfishly helped the wounded from the area where he was fighting to Anzac Cove and safety. Having saved countless soldiers, he was eventually killed. It is important that all of us think about Simpson and his unselfish work, because it is Simpson and thousands of others who have unselfishly given their time and lives for us that we commemorate on Anzac Day. Anzac Day is when we remember the brave and fearless soldiers who fought for their country. The spirit of an Anzac recognises the qualities of courage, mateship and sacrifice, which were demonstrated on the landing at Anzac Cove in Gallipoli. Anzac Day is a day of commemoration, to say thank you, and to honour all soldiers from all wars who have fought and, more importantly, died for Australia. For it is these men and women's sacrifices that allow you to live in a comfortable home and have the opportunity to attend such a nice school. I would now like to share a poem I found, written by a 12-year-old, the same age as me. Lest we forget what? The beach, the bush and the freedom I've got. It's always been here since I was a boy. My clothes, my friends, my family, my toys. I live by the beach, enjoy the sand and the sea. There could be no better place to live for me. The restrictions I have in a life full of fun are only restricted by my dad and mum. The things they have seen, the lessons they have learned, that they will instill them in me and their trust I will earn. For they know the past and the stories of old, stories that must forever be told. Stories of courage, of strength and determination, stories that have moulded and shaped this great nation. Stories about heroes, about good men and women, stories that give me the great life that I am living. But sadly I know these heroes I will never meet, still I march in their memory on their day down the street. I will march for the heroes that didn't come home, and I know I'll be marching for the ones left alone. My great-granddads were there, left behind the ones that they loved, so I could live in this great land and live the life that I love. Anzac Day is a very special day, lest we forget.
Yeah, they don't get any better than that, do they? I'd now like to invite Sapphire Coast Anglican College, Courtney Yields, and Lumen Christi Catholic College, Hamish Schluck.
Today, throughout Australia and New Zealand, ceremonies will be conducted to honour the memory of those brave soldiers who have fought and, more importantly, died for our country. ANZAC Day commemorates the anniversary of the landing on Gallipoli in 1915, but more broadly reminds us of the sacrifices of those Australians who served and died in all wars, conflicts and peacekeeping operations. My great-grandfather, Keith Guthrie, joined the Light Horse before being reinforced into 2nd 10th Battalion before serving in New Guinea, Borneo in 1945. Today I wear his medals with pride. The young men of Gallipoli were the first ANZACs, ordinary young Australians doing their best to serve their country. Their casualties here were devastating. Nearly 8,000 Australians were killed and 78,000 wounded. It is because of these men and women's sacrifices that we have the opportunity to live in freedom in a country of fortune and beauty. To our generation, for the sake of the future of this great country, we need to carry the spirit of ANZAC with us always, mateship, unselfishness and courage. We should reflect on the past with pride, but also to look forward and build on the past achievements of our brave soldiers. ANZAC Day reminds us that wars are to be avoided, but when necessary, we must stand up for our values, lest we forget.
We celebrate ANZAC Day each year, but for what purpose? Is ANZAC Day a day to celebrate war, Australia's losses in war, or the overall cost of war to everyone involved? To me, ANZAC Day is the reflection of the cost of war, not just to Australia, but also to those who our soldiers were opposed. Although ANZAC incorporates Australia and New Zealand, we sometimes forget to remember the fallen on the other side of the battlefield, and their families and friends who were left behind. And not only those fighting, but those millions caught in the conflict. We hear of the horrendous conditions of war, the mud, sickness, and we remember that these conditions were being shared by the soldiers on the other side of the battlefield, in the cold, rain and mud, with their own mates dying around. All such of conflicts were soldiers who had to live with and with these hardships. War not only affects those who are on the front line, but also those who are back home, waiting for their loved one to return. These people, the friends and family, were the people hurt when a soldier on the front line was killed, a son, a brother, a father, a husband. These were the losses that were inflicted on everyone, a sadness that affected anyone, irrespective of gender, age or country. These losses were felt by all. As we look back on war today, we remember all who lost their homes, communities, their freedom, their security, and ultimately their lives. We remember too those who lost a friend or family member on the front lines or caught in conflict. However, today we remember the servicemen and women around the world are still involved on ongoing conflicts, such as in the Middle East or in the fighting in Libya, Yemen, and other places in tension and turmoil. This continuation of fighting in the world will inevitably cause further losses and injuries to the soldiers and communities there. Although these costs of war are too high, in turn they have helped us to solidify the values we hold so highly, such as mateship, endurance and loyalty. Values which have not just become a part of our Defence Force culture, but of the Australian culture in which we all live. Each year ANZAC Day helps to remind us not just of the cost of war in the past or to only ANZAC soldiers, but to everyone who is involved. We remember today the cost of all war, lest we forget.
This now leads us to our wreath laying ceremony. Wreaths that were already laid this morning. Departed comrades was Australian Defence Force Academy Sub-Lieutenant Clark, RSL Sub-Branch Junior Vice President Mr John Rawlings, RSL Monaro and Farth South Coast District Council President Mr Warren Thompson, Vietnam Veterans Sub-Branch Member Mr Tony Toussaint, Return and Services League Panorama Daycare Club, Volunteer, Mr Kevin Webb. Merimbula RSL Club Limited President, Mr Graham Williams. Merimbula Bowling Club, Mr Max Staggle. Local Police Service, Sergeant Clifton Scarlett. Royal Volunteer Coastal Patrol, by the Radio Officer, Mr Ted Young. I'd now like to invite, for the Merchant Navy, Mr Bob Johnston to come forward. Ex-servicewoman, Nan Brooks. Allied Services, Lonnie Llewellyn. Legacy, President Jeff Dove. Laurel Club, Ivy Brown. Do we have a representative here today from the Salvation Army? Bega Valley Shire Council, Councillor David Heath. School students, Blooming Christie College, Merimbula Primary School, Sapphire Coast Anglican College and Eden High School.